next speaker or talker is Katyana Armen, and Katyana is the General Manager of Brand and Integrity from the Australian Wool Exchange, or AWEX. So AWEX is a not-for-profit organisation committed to enhancing the quality, integrity and sustainability of Australian wool, and as a wool producer I love to hear that. AWEX drives key initiatives such as the Australian Wool Sustainability Scheme, the National Wool Declaration, and innovative digital traceability platforms like WoolClip and eBale and ePack. Katyana, as I mentioned, is the General Manager of Brand and Integrity, and in that role she leads efforts to promote sustainability and innovation in the wool industry, with a strong background in marketing and innovation, including roles with global brands like PepsiCo and Diageo. Katyana will share insights into advancing sustainability and integrity within the wool industry through AWEX's initiatives, including its cutting-edge digital tools and sustainability certification. Over to you. Big button goes forward.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'll be talking about today is the Australian Wool Sustainability Scheme. It's a sustainability certification for Australian wool producers, but also for our supply chain. The interesting part about this is that it was born out of the wool industry. It used to be called the Sustainable Integrity Scheme. It was developed in the New England wool growing area of New South Wales, working with some Italian wool processors and fabric makers. They identified the need for sustainability credentials in their markets, and that grew at such a scale that they gifted this sustainability scheme to industry. And at that point, that's when it came into AWEX, and we've been looking after the scheme since 2019. We undertook a review of the scheme that started in 2022. We had some consultation that was led by KPMG, a lot of discussion with our domestic and international supply chain, looking for what was needed from a sustainability certification moving forward. And what came up out of that work was there were a few factors. One of the most important drivers for Australian wool is that a lot of our wool goes to the apparel market, and many of our customers are operating in the EU. So things like the EU Green Claims Directive, multiple regulations that are changing, they all have implications on what certifications need to deliver for them. And this is really about risk mitigation for them. It's also about meeting their requirements and their commitments. Another part that came out through the consultation was just how much certification in the wool supply chain was costing money. It was slowing things down. It was introducing a lot of admin all the way through the supply chain. And that's interesting because it could arguably be reducing the value that growers are getting for their wool, as the supply chain needs to account for these costs further downstream. But also it is raising prices of the end products as well. Traceability, we've heard a lot about it. It's definitely of high need for wool. We are very fortunate in the wool industry to have some really great tools that are industry-wide in terms of eBale and WoolClip, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then the other part that is always very interesting for wool is that it's a highly technical fibre. It's got lots of variability, and for our customers, particularly processors, making sure that the wool is packed in a uniform way, fit for purpose, well documented, minimal contamination is really important to minimise waste and maximise productivity for the industry. And that's the backbone of that is Australian wool classing, which is something that we know is really important for realising value for Australian wool. To no surprise to anyone, I'm sure, a lot of wool customers have made specific commitments around animal husbandry practices, in particular, committing to purchase wool from sheep that have not been mulesed, and being able to buy that with confidence from Australia was really important, and that's where traceability actually works hand in glove to meet those needs for our customers. And similarly, we've had this come up earlier today. It's important to keep the vision on holistic sustainability. A criticism of sustainability certifications in wool can be that it can be a bit of a lightning rod to just the mulesing conversation. And sustainability is so much broader than even caring for animals, and caring for animals is so much broader than just whether or not you mules. So that was something that we knew was really important. Continuity of supply is of interest to our customers, and having a financially resilient industry that protects the productivity and the know-how that's been built over many generations is a really important part of our sustainability credentials. So we thought it was really important that our standard capture that. So where we landed was kind of in 3 points where we had a big change. One, that we just doubled down on what we're here to deliver in terms of a sustainability certification, which is made by the industry for industry, fit for purpose for our climate, our production systems, our regulations, so that it is pragmatic and practical rather than overlaying things that come out of a global market that might not be as well connected to all the things that producers are doing here. With the sustainability space changing so rapidly, it was really important for us to be able to navigate through what a credible certification needs to be over time, and to meet the requirements for our customers at the end of the day as they continue to evolve. So to do that, we stood up an independent expert panel that helped guide us through the science and through the regulations. We're very fortunate to have a few of them in the room today, and that's been a really important addition and strength that we incorporated as we relaunched the program. And the last one, which is really important for all members of the supply chain, was that we felt that it needed to be scalable and fast. Modern business does not move slowly, and for that we really focused on how technology and digital traceability can help unlock that for our supply chain. Our sustainability standard is deliberately aligned to the Sheep Sustainability Framework and the Australian Agricultural Sustainability Framework. In a way, one of our visions is to, at a peak level, for a grower to be able to demonstrate that they are contributing to things like the Sheep Sustainability Framework. I think that's really important. And so where we ended up when we did a review, we relaunched the name of the scheme. It is the Australian Wool Sustainability Scheme, and we have two distinct certifications that growers can achieve, and they only differ on one aspect, which is mulesing status. So sustainable is for a property that meets all of our standards across all of our pillars, which I'll share in a minute, but it is for non-mulesed or ceased mulesed enterprises. Responsible is exactly the same, except it's for growers who are using mulesing for their fly strike risk management with appropriate pain relief. That's the only difference between the two. So what do the standard pillars look like? They're very similar to the Sheep Sustainability Framework, and that's deliberate. We're trying to keep the language really consistent. The one addition that we have in our standard, which is really important for wool, is about clip preparation and integrity. So that's where we have things like wool that needs to be classed by a registered wool classer to the code of practice. That is something that's audited every week, so that buyers can have confidence in the quality of the clip preparation. And the integrity side is really about the data and the traceability of what we're doing with our certification. We thought it was really important that we take the opportunity to showcase Australian wool production in a fair light. Sometimes sustainability certifications can have the opposite effect on Australian wool growers. So we're very mindful of raising the bar on the full spectrum of what caring for sheep is all about. A lot of times it has been really narrowed down to, oh, well, it's non-mules, so therefore you're taking good care of your sheep. And as we all know, sometimes that is not the case. It's not a guarantee that you're caring for your sheep, but also that we are making efforts to really explain to supply chain and brands that for the growers that are choosing to use mulesing with pain relief as part of their fly strike risk management, that is actually caring for your sheep. So that's a part of the role that we've taken on in terms of putting the Australian wool grower in the appropriate light. Another part that we had to assess when we did our review was really what our role was. In the wool supply chain is very long and complex, and a lot of certifications are about chain of custody, more so all the way to finished product. Our main question that we're looking to answer was what we heard from customers. The biggest blind spot that they have is what's happening on farm. So for us, we end at the greasy wool stage. Our certification is all about having high integrity, what we can validate. We didn't have that visibility and that presence all the way through the global supply chain, and we didn't have a credible solution to be able to trace it and trace the sustainability credentials of the entire wool supply chain. So our certification ends at the greasy wool stage. That was a really important change for us, but it is a big change for the market. So we're still working through how that is going to be used by different supply chains. Chain of custody is a really important part of meeting your requirements for anyone that's in these kind of supply chains globally. I will speed up. One thing that has come up quite a bit for us is the idea of regenerative. I'm just going to shortcut it and say when we've assessed this, we really believe that if something is truly sustainable, it has to also be regenerative. There are regenerative practices as part of our standard, but we also felt that it was not the most beneficial thing to start separating, from a marketing point of view, a regenerative wool versus a sustainably certified wool. Because what does that say about sustainably certified wool? So we really do believe that they are one and the same. Our requirements are pretty simple this is for the quality and integrity pillar. We've always had the National Wool Declaration as an important part of our certification, as being prepared by a wool classer and receiving that P certificate. We have two new additions, which is they're now requirements for certification for the wool, and that is to use WoolClip. WoolClip is an on-farm digital data capture platform for Australian wool producers, and to scan an e-pack into WoolClip. All wool packs that come into Australia now are e-packs, which means that they have a QR code at the front and an RFID tag at the back with a unique identifier, which means that every wool bale can be traced digitally, which opens up a lot of efficiency and a lot of confidence for our global supply chain customers. We have more plans to use technology in the future. So we are building what we're calling the Grower Gateway, and we're looking to see how we can have a producer upload evidence of their sustainability outcomes on farm directly, rather than relying on on-farm auditors flying or driving around this very large country. So we're looking to see how we can build verification even more using technology as a benefit. So this is still a work in progress, but we hope that we can get ahead of the verification demands that we expect will keep growing, but it's going to be very difficult and costly to do if we don't find a way to do this kind of at a farm scale. Last three things. We've had some challenges. I'll just share some learnings as we've done our relaunch. We relaunched as the Australian Wool Sustainability Scheme in July this year. The market is quite challenged at the moment. We've got low prices, high costs. It's not the easiest time to sell a benefit of getting sustainably certified. And so for us, that's about really looking at other ways we can demonstrate a value proposition for a sustainability certification to growers. So we are looking at creative ways to do that. We can't control price, and a lot of the times at the moment it wouldn't be covering the cost of production, so that is a big challenge. We also have some parts of the market who resist technology. They're a bit daunted by it, so we're doing a lot of work to help those growers get their confidence up in terms of using that technology. And the last one, which is a really interesting observation, is that we tend to have a separation between the market here, where a grower will be talking to their selling agent, and our customers. There can be some separation there. In Australia, in the domestic market, we tend to look at a sustainability certification as an opportunity to do some marketing and to differentiate. Our customers don't want us to differentiate. They want one thing that meets their needs. So that's been a really interesting insight for us, and we're looking for ways to communicate and educate the market around this over time. We've had the first of what we'll hope to be a series of really interesting podcasts that are available, so to try to get onto that journey with the market, and then I'm done. Thanks.